long time ago, I was just chilling in my room, headphones on, completely engrossed in some video game, when suddenly this distant wail of sirens cuts through the air. This happens quite often, nothing new really. Those sirens are coming from this abandoned building just 1 block away from my place. It was one of those abandoned buildings that had a rumor of being haunted. That's the reason why sirens are often heard from this place, because people like to explore the mysterious, A lot of screams can often be heard at night as well, probably because the people that go there get scared to death. So when people go in there, police are often patrolling around this area. Exactly why I don't know. Now, I am not one to believe in ghosts or anything supernatural, so I never did pay close attention to the screams that echoed from that place. I just thought it was a bunch of jokers fooling around. But this afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. I thought, why not see what all the fuss is about? I mean, I know it's just an old building, but how come people keep screaming from that place, and why do the police patrol around that building? So, I called some of my friends and proposed the idea that we should try and explore it, and we decided to venture into the unknown. Armed with a bunch of flashlights and a daredevil attitude, we walked towards the building. When we got there, it did look creepy. I have walked past this building many times but haven't thought anything of it. Probably because today was different, and we were now standing in front of it, about to go in. We stepped into that ominous building, its creaky doors protesting our intrusion. It's weird how my whole stance changed from standing upright to slightly bending my knees and taking steps carefully. Our flashlight made shadows flickering on the walls, and this eerie ambiance that made my heart race. As we crept deeper, the sound started to intensify. We could hear water dripping from the ceiling, echoing through the empty rooms. I swear, each drop sounded like a distant whisper, and I couldn't shake off this feeling that we were being watched. And then there were these weird clinks and rattles like chains swaying in the breeze. We kept our cool, but my heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. We heard distant noises too, other noises than the chain swaying and water dripping. Little did we know we weren't the only brave souls exploring its creepy corridors that day. The door was forcefully opened and all of us screamed louder than you could ever imagine. It was 2 other guys also exploring the building. We needed to catch our breath, so they kept going and we stayed behind for a while. And just when we thought we were the kings of bravery, ready to continue, one of my friends said that he wanted to go home, so we all decided to just go back home again. As we got back out, the police stood outside. Turns out, our little scream fest had been loud enough to get us a visit from the boys in blue. We got slapped with a noise complaint. We decided not to tell them about the 2 other guys in the building, hoping they wouldn't get a ticket as well, even though they scared us. As we stood there, shaking in our boots, an officer handed us a ticket, a stern look in his eyes. I couldn't help but chuckle, a mix of relief and embarrassment bubbling up inside me. We left the building that day, laughter and a few chills in tow, but we knew we'd never forget that heart-pounding adventure. This happened a few years ago, so excuse me if the details are a bit blurry. I was going on an adventure. It was the kind of adventure we urban explorers lived for, an abandoned hospital that had been whispered about in online forums and hushed conversations. The place was a relic of another era, its windows shattered and its hallways swallowed by shadows. I had gathered my crew of fellow thrill-seekers, each of us brimming with a mix of excitement and trepidation. We were just 3 guys, my brother, our mutual friend, and me. As we pushed open the creaking doors, the smell of decay filled the air, assaulting our senses. Our flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing graffiti-covered walls and discarded medical equipment. Our steps echoed through the silence, each footfall a reminder of the place's haunting history. We made our way deeper, drawn by the morbid allure of forgotten patient rooms and forgotten lives. It wasn't long before we stumbled upon an old nurse's station, its counter littered with yellowed patient records. The dates on the documents went back decades, a testament to the hospital's past. We were captivated by the stories etched onto the pages, illnesses, surgeries, and tales of survival. It was extreme. It was surreal. Amid our exploration, a voice echoed from the corridor ahead. We froze, our flashlights dancing toward the sound. There, leaning against a doorframe, stood a figure, a lone individual who seemed as much a part of the building as the decaying walls themselves. It was a man, claiming to have once been a patient within these very walls. His story was haunting, experimental treatments, questionable practices, and a sense of despair that had been etched into his memory. He spoke of doctors who seemed more like mad scientists and patients who had vanished without a trace. While we were skeptical, there was an honesty in his voice that was hard to ignore. His presence began to cast a shadow of doubt over our own exploration. As we continued to venture deeper, strange noises seemed to follow us, soft whispers that prickled at the edges of our consciousness. Every flicker of our flashlights made us question what lay beyond the shadows. Tension grew among us, as we couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Our camaraderie began to fray as paranoia set in, and questions surfaced about the credibility of the man's tale. Was he leading us astray? Were the whispers simply figments of our imagination, fueled by our own fears? In a climactic moment, we confronted the man about his past and his intentions. He met our accusations with a mix of melancholy and understanding. He admitted that he had his own reasons for being in the hospital, reasons that were intertwined with the dark history of the place. His confession left us conflicted, unsure of whether to empathize or distance ourselves. Caught in a strange blend of empathy and unease, we found ourselves willingly following him into the depths of the hospital's shadowy corridors. The building's layout seemed to twist and warp around us, defying all reason. Hallways that had led to open spaces before now seemed to end abruptly in dead ends. Doors we had just passed through vanished into thin air, as if erasing their existence. The whole experience was so surreal that our mind must have played tricks on us. With each step, my sense of direction disintegrated. In the labyrinthine maze that the hospital had become, the man's guidance felt like the only lifeline keeping me tethered to reality. The sensation of being watched intensified as we pressed forward, an unseen presence following our every move. It felt as like we could imagine how everything had taken place back then as we entered the rooms one by one. His voice reverberated through the shifting corridors, leading us to concealed rooms reeking of decay and remnants of the sinister experiments. The flickering beams of our flashlights revealed rusty surgical tools, restraining devices, and machinery that seemed more at home in a nightmare than in reality. Grotesque artwork adorned the walls, murals depicting the agony and torment that the unfortunate victims of the experiments had endured. Each room we entered revealed a fresh layer of horror. The chilling records left behind painted vivid pictures of the victims' suffering. His voice faltered as he explained the cruelty that had been inflicted upon these patients. As we finally left the hospital's decaying corridors behind, our thoughts were a whirlwind of emotions. What had we truly encountered that day? Was the man a genuine survivor of the hospital's past? The lines between reality and fear had blurred, leaving us with a lingering unease that echoed in the back of our minds, long after we had left the shadows of that haunted hospital. My old man and I stumbled upon an abandoned subway station that had been hidden from the world for decades. Armed with nothing but flashlights and our unyielding curiosity, we decided to plunge into the dark depths of this underground abyss. The station's entrance was like a portal to the past, covered in layers of dust and a pitch-black sight ahead. We exchanged looks of anticipation, that unique mixture of excitement and unease that only comes from venturing into the unknown. As we descended deeper into the tunnels, the air grew heavy with history. Every footstep seemed to echo with the ghosts of commuters long gone. My dad stopped for a second and said, "Listen." I couldn't hear anything at first, but then I heard something. It was unclear what I heard. We exchanged puzzled glances. We tried to brush it off as nothing more than the station's acoustics playing tricks on our minds, but it didn't stop there. The further we went, the more we began to hear things, the faint echo of footsteps, as if someone was pacing in the darkness just beyond our field of vision. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and my grip on my flashlight tightened. We'd heard stories of urban legends and hidden treasures in abandoned places, but this was something else entirely. And then the unthinkable happened. I stumbled and fell over something. At first, I thought it was a rock of some sort, but it turned out it was much worse. It was someone's bed. As my dad pointed his flashlight at me and wanted to help me up, he was shocked at what he saw. So shocked that he forgot I was lying on the ground. Fresh food wrappers, makeshift beds of tattered blankets, signs that someone had been down here recently. Panic knotted in my stomach, and I could feel my heart racing. It was like we'd stumbled upon a secret world that had no intention of letting us leave. The voices grew louder, more urgent, as if the shadows themselves were closing in on us. Paranoia clawed at our minds, and we started questioning each other's motives, each other's actions. In a heartbeat decision, we decided to backtrack, to turn around before whatever or whoever had left those signs of recent activity came back. But as we retraced our steps, our flashlights caught a glint in the darkness, another set of lights moving toward us down the tunnel. Panic surged through our veins as realization hit us like a ton of bricks. We were not alone. We knew we had to get the hell away from this place. Without a word, we turned and bolted, our hearts pounding, our footsteps echoing against the cold walls. The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, and every sound, every drip of water, every echo, felt like the breath of something sinister on our necks. As the distant flashlights grew closer, we finally burst through the entrance into blinding daylight, gasping for air and clinging to each other like a lifeline. We never looked back.